Everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us. Video of this meeting is streamed on YouTube and will also be available on Facebook and the Village's website, which brings up that we've started our social media campaign. Actually went live today. Handle, I guess, for not knowing what I'm supposed to call it, is at Village of Grange. It's going to start with being on Facebook and Instagram, probably moving on to LinkedIn and some other pages. So we're excited about that. Please check us out, friend us, or whatever we're supposed to do to connect. It's really being used so that we can communicate better. And I appreciate the directors, department heads for introducing themselves on video. And we're real excited about that. With that, I would ask Clerk Saladino to call the meeting to order and call the roll.
Trustee Augustine.
Here.
Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee O'Brien.
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
Trustee McGee. President Kukler.
Here. And Trustee McGee contacted me and is feeling ill. We wish her a speedy recovery. And with that, I'd ask Clerk Saladino to invite the audience to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, please stand.
To the flag of the United States, to the republic, one nation, indivisible, liberty, justice.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. The first item under the President's report are the actuarial findings as of April 30th, 2025, and the recommended contributions for this year for the police and fire pension funds. I'd like to invite Kevin Kavanaugh and Todd Schroeder from Lauterbach and Amen up to the podium to begin their presentation.
Please.
All right, we're green. All right, so just by way of introduction, my name is Kevin Kavanaugh from Lauterbach and Amen. Also with me today, I've got Todd Schroeder. He's a signing actuary for the reports that we're about to go over this evening with the board. And the focus of today's conversation is going to be on the fire and police pension funds. We complete 2 reports on an annual basis for the fire and police funds. One is for determining funding requirements. One is for determining, is for the GASB 6768 for your financial statement reporting. So the primary focus will be on the results of this year's funding report. Without further ado, we'll get started on that first page in your presentation. And just for reference, I do have a couple paper copies of the presentation. If anybody wants one, if you just kind of throw your hand up, Todd can hand one out to anybody who's interested. So the key results for this year's valuation, right out the gate, as you can see, the recommended contribution to the fire pension fund, this would be for the upcoming year, is $1,819,544, and for police, $2,232,288. Year over year, that represents an increase for the fire fund of about 9.26%, and for the police pension fund of about 7.5% year over year. And you can see those last year's recommended amounts just below. You can see the total unfunded liability within both funds listed below there for a combined total of about $37.4 million. One way to think about that unfunded liability, it's basically if you were to fully fund these pension funds overnight, that's how much money it would take. That translates to your funded percent this year on the fire side, about 52.31%, and on police, about 54.65% funded. Just for reference, the average fire pension fund in the state of Illinois at the end of 2024 sits at about 67% funded, and police at about 64% funded. So you've got a little bit of ways to go to catch up to that state average. The next slide in here is going to detail out the factors that led to the increase in contribution. You see the fire on the left, police on the right, and then the totals column on the far right. We expected to see an increase for both fire and police. That's a typical annual increase of about 3.25%. Salary increases came in greater than expected for both funds, which led to a combined increase of about $31,000. The actuarial experience is primarily any demographic changes that we saw this year, led to a $110,000 increase in the contribution. The next line item represents assumption changes. And we did complete an assumption study this year. It's been 4 years since we did our last study. When we do these assumption studies, we look at specifically Illinois firefighters and police officers to come up with our best estimates on a going forward basis of all the different factors that will impact projected benefit payments for these members. So we'll see a little bit more detail on that in a minute. Asset returns were greater than expected for both funds, which drove the contribution down about $54,400. And then finally, contributions were less than expected, primarily due to timing, and there was also just a slight shortfall, which we'll talk about in a minute. The total contributions represented about 98% of the full recommended amount was deposited into both the fire and police pension funds during this fiscal year. This will be the fiscal year ended April 30, 2025. That next slide on page 4 details the two components that make up the full recommended contribution. First piece being employer normal cost. You can think of that as the annual cost of benefit accrual for active members. So that's independent of funded status. That cost will remain as part of the annual cost associated with the fund. And then the other piece there is paying off unfunded liability. So there's that $16 million on the fire side and about $21 million on the police side, both being amortized or paid off over the next 15 years. So those payments towards unfunded liability are targeting 100% funding over that next 15 years that you can see there. Together, those two components get us to the full recommended amounts for this year. Slide 5 has got all the demographic changes we saw for fire. So I won't drill in too much in detail here, but we saw a couple new hires during the year, one retirement and one surviving spouse who passed away. So you can see the impacts there. On the police side, similar story. We saw a couple new hires, and then two surviving spouses unfortunately passed away during the year. So you can see the impacts that had on the contribution. Slide 7, we show you this is all the active members in the fire pension fund, their age and service. And then towards the bottom right, you'll notice that there's a bordered off section, kind of boot-shaped. So that solid line represents Tier 1 retirement eligibility. Anyone that falls within those borders is retirement eligible individual who's active and ready to retire at their own discretion. That tells us on the fire side, we've got 3 of the 19 total active members that are retirement eligible as of April 30, 2025. Also of note is at the bottom right, you can see the breakdown in headcount between Tier 1 and Tier 2 members. Tier 2, anyone hired after January 1st, 2011. And so there's 13 Tier 1 members, 6 Tier 2 members on the fire side. For police, you see the same breakdown. Notice that there's no individuals within that solid bordered line. That indicates that there's no one who has met the age and service criteria to retire as of April 30, 2025. But we can definitely see upcoming, there's going to be a few individuals that are going to meet that criteria. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. Notice the difference in the makeup of the fund on the police side. There's 6 Tier 1 members, and the bottom right, 6 Tier 1, 21 Tier 2 members. So police is much more heavily balanced towards Tier 2 individuals. There's been some discussion at the state level about improving Tier 2 benefits. That's why I mentioned that, is because your exposure level on the police side is going to be a bit bigger than on the fire side if Tier 2 benefits are improved. So that'll be an interesting bill to keep your eyes on to see if that changes. That's Senate Bill 1937. On page 9, we've got expected benefit payments for the fund. So you can see the active and inactive member headcounts. One thing I know Todd has highlighted with you guys before in talking about the demographic makeup of these funds is we'd categorize your funds as mature pension funds. And the reason I say that is if you notice there's a lot more inactive members than there are active members. So on the fire side, it's about 61% inactive. On the police, 66%. So you think of your inactive members as anyone who's currently receiving benefits, surviving spouses, disabled members, or deferred members entitled to future benefits. Benefit payments last year paid out from both funds together was about $4.91 million. And we'd anticipate 10 years from now that the funds would be paying out approximately $6.32 million on an annual basis. So increases are coming down the line. This next slide on page 10 details out the results of our assumption study for this year. So these are some of the assumptions that we updated as part of that process. Some of the key takeaways as these assumptions are listed, the bigger impact items were individual pay increases. Number one, we reviewed a new collective bargaining agreement for the fire pension fund so that we're anticipating future wage increases to project pay at retirement. And then also, we updated our pay increase assumption by 0.25% per year to represent an increased assumption for inflation from 2.25% up to 2.5%, which I think makes a little bit more sense in today's market and what we expect to see on a going forward basis. The other kind of bigger ticket item that caused an increase more so on the fire side related to these assumption updates was retirement rates. We're finding that really both for fire and police, we're seeing higher rates of retirement at younger ages. So we've updated our assumptions to now anticipate that members will be retiring at younger ages. Basically, the effect that has on the valuation is when we're investing for members' retirement benefits, it's a shorter time horizon. And then also members are expected to receive benefits for longer if they retire at more towards the earlier end of their retirement eligibility. This is a trend we're seeing pretty much across the state. It's not unique to your community, but we did update those assumptions this year. And the rest of the assumptions, impact was relatively minimal for the most part. And just to touch on that, so total increase for fire related to these assumption changes was $73,100. And for police, it was actually minimal, just $290 total impact, total increase. Page 11 is going to show you how the assets changed throughout the fiscal year for both fire and police. So one thing I'd highlight on this page is you started fire, $16.6 million, ended $18.1. Police started $23.7 million, ended at about $24.8. One thing that's interesting to note here is if you look for this year, it was a great investment year. You can sum up the employer contributions and the member contributions, and on the fire side, the investment return actually exceeds all of that. So that's really kind of goes to show you the benefit of having these pension funds in the first place, is the ability to earn on investments, which saves money from coming out of taxpayers' pockets, right? So this year, the total contributions from the village as well as the members, it ends up being that the fund returned more on its just investment returns than all those contributions combined. For police, it was pretty close, just a hair below, about $50,000 less in investment return than total contributions. And you can see those returns on the text box to the right. Total return for the year was 10.24% for fire, 9.05% for police, and that's net of all administrative expenses. So both funds well above expectation, with the expected return being 7% for both funds. On page 12, we've got our risk management comments. So this is some factors that we look at to assess the overall health of the funds. So the first metric we provided here is we're comparing the assets today against the total inactive liability. You'll notice that there's less in assets than there is in inactive liability. So in a perfect world, we would have really the assets covered for all those inactive liability today. There is a shortfall here, which really just kind of means that number one, it's a function of the fact that you have a mature pension funds, right? So most of your liability is associated with your inactive members. And also it's just a function of kind of the past and how we got to where we're at today. On a going forward basis, what we like to look at is the ratio of benefit payments to the fair value of assets. This tells us if we look at the total pension fund, what percent of the dollars in the fund is used to pay 1 year of benefit payments. So on the fire side, you'll notice that number is 10.57%, and on police, it's 12.07%. So the one way we like to look at this number is we compare against the expected rate of return. So on an annual basis, we expect the funds to get about a 7% return. If you can see how that ratio of benefits is higher, that means that the fund's expected to pay out more in benefits than it's anticipated to earn on investments. That's not the end of the world. It just means that as new cash comes into the fund, again, in a perfect world, you'd kind of park that money in the fund, let it ride, invest it for the next 20, 30 years. But ultimately, because those ratios are a little bit higher, you're having to draw upon some of the cash that comes into the fund to keep up with benefit payments. The good news here is that these numbers are moving in the right direction. Both ratios are down a little bit this year compared to last year's numbers. At the very bottom of that page is a little chart summarizing how the contribution would change if we change the expected rate of return on investments. It's currently set at 7%, which is a fairly reasonable assumption at this point in time. Page 13 is the alternative contribution. So the difference here is that up until this point, I've been talking about the recommended amount. This number, the alternative contribution, is calculated using Illinois state statute for minimum funding policy. So that's to be 90% funded by the year 2040, as compared to our recommended contribution is targeting 100% funding by that same 2040 target date. So you'll notice these contribution amounts come in quite a bit less, about $1.53 million for fire, $1.7 for police. Historically, the village has contributed closer to the recommended contribution level, but this just kind of gives you a sense of the metric of where the low end of the spectrum of the village's contribution could be. You can see some different metrics on that page as well. And then turning to the next slide here, we've got the 5-year contribution history to the fire pension fund. So we're comparing the village's contribution, that's the employer contribution each year, compared against the actuarially determined contribution, which is basically the recommended amount trued up for timing. So it's a 2-year time lag. And you can see this year for fire, for example, the village contributed 97.79%, so just shy of 100% of the recommendation. And over the last 4 years, it was exactly 100%. That averages out to 99.56%. Very strong contribution history from the village side in supporting these funds and contributing the recommended amounts. Almost exactly the same story for police. This year, 97.71%, and on average over the last 5 years, about 99.57%. The reason that's kind of an important metric to look at is because when you do your financial statement reporting as part of your audit, one of the factors that is included in that is the results of this GASB solvency test. And so when we do this solvency test, it's an 80-year projection of cash flows. And with that, we're assuming that the village will contribute in the future years as it has in the past 5 years on average. So because the village has done such a good job funding these recommended contributions, and those recommended contributions are enough to target 100% funding, we'd anticipate the funds to be fully solvent or able to pay all future benefit payments for the current fund membership. So that's a nice positive result. That's what you're looking for on the GASB reporting. So that's good news there. Same exact result for police. The fund is projected to be fully solvent, or if it's assumed we assume a closed group, then we anticipate the fund would be able to pay out all the current members into the future. The only other thing I just wanted to mention to the board for consideration, and that's really the summary of results that I've got for you guys today, is that both the fire and police pension boards are considering their opening discussions about potentially changing funding policy. Next year, they're considering adopting a layered amortization. So if they decide to go that route, the difference would be that right now we're targeting 100% funding by 2040. That means the unfunded liability you have today as well as all future years. And as we get closer to 2040, that time will get shorter and shorter, right? Once we're in 2039, the funds will have to be 100% funded in 1 year as opposed to the current 15. And so with the layered amortization, the difference there is we take each year whatever the change in unfunded liability is, and then we amortize that over a separate 15-year closed period. So what will happen over time is you'll have this initial layer of unfunded liability will be paid off as it is under your current policy. And then if that layered amortization is implemented, then next year, whatever that change in unfunded liability is, it'll be paid off over the subsequent 15 years as opposed to 14 under the current policy, and so on. So when you reach 2040, you'll still have a little bit of unfunded liability to pay off, but it'll help to stabilize the contribution because then whatever change we're looking at each year will be spread out over a 15-year period as opposed to a continually shrinking period. So that's just an ongoing discussion that we're having with the fire and police pension boards right now, just for your information. That being said, that's the results I've got for this year for your actuarial reporting for fire and police. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
First, thank you very much. Doesn't look like there's any questions. We do appreciate it. And again, to just emphasize for the residents, we are making the contributions, and the goal is in 15 years to have those funds completely, the owed amounts paid off. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thanks. This Saturday, November 29th, is Small Business Saturday. The event serves to celebrate and highlight the importance of small businesses in LaGrange. Join in the fun at the LaGrange Flash Sale starts on Saturday at 9 a.m. and shop LaGrange's fantastic small businesses. Patrons are encouraged not only to do so during the holidays, but of course, all year round. The holiday walk, some may have noticed, the large tree has been delivered and installed just outside Village Hall. We'd like to thank the Novak family for their generous donation of the tree and A&B Landscaping for removing and relocating it to the Village Hall. With that, many of us know the holiday walk is just around the corner. Its heartwarming community tradition will take place on Saturday, December 6th. Join in the delight with plenty of things to explore and participate in, including a visit and take pictures with Santa and Mrs. Claus right here in the Village Hall. Visit and take pictures with frozen princesses at the LaGrange train station. The lighting of the official LaGrange holiday tree, a petting zoo with pony rides for the kids, letters to Santa, a free trolley ride, a lot of merchant open houses, and shopping deals throughout. It's also holiday light recycling at the end of the season. During this time of year, many go about decorating their homes with holiday lights. It is almost inevitable that through the process, individuals will discover a strand or even several strands that aren't working. The Village's Environmental Quality Commission, in partnership with the LaGrange Park Sustainability Commission, have again arranged for the perfect solution for when your lights aren't working. And that's the Holiday Light Recycling Program. Now through January 11th, collection sites for lights to be recycled include Village Hall, parking garage vestibule, library, rec center, as well as corresponding facilities in LaGrange Park. When you recycle, please do not include paper or plastic bags, decorations, plastic clips, ties, plastic reels, garland, wreaths, or branches, just those strands of lights. The Village and the EQC appreciate all that participate in this effort to keep the resources out of the landfills. And on that, I'm going to hold up for the camera, which I'm not sure where the camera, straight ahead. I'll assume it's straight ahead, even though I don't see it. Flood Brothers has provided some stickers that can be affixed to the recycling toters. They're stickers that say what is allowed and what's not accepted. So if you have any concerns, these stickers are available at Village Hall. Please come by. Also, we have stickers for the yard waste containers. We previously had a different collection sticker for yard waste. We no longer have that. So if you're not using a garbage toter and used your own garbage cans, you can affix one of these stickers that say yard waste only, and that will signal to the Flood Brother workers that it's a yard waste container. So please use the stickers. Again, they're available at Village Hall if you need them. And with that, I want to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And Manager Knight, please provide the manager's report.
Thank you, President Kukler. Good evening, everyone. Work on the Ogden Avenue Bridge deck continues with joint replacement and paving remaining to be completed. The revised estimate on the completion of the work and the reopening of all lanes is targeted for December 5th, which is contingent on the weather. During this phase, traffic will remain reduced to one lane each direction, and pedestrian detour will continue. As always, motorists are encouraged to be vigilant when traveling in and around the construction areas. Last Monday, Village staff and the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or CMAP, held an open house for the South LaGrange Road Corridor Study at 7th Avenue School. Study aims to build on the comprehensive planning efforts and assist in developing a plan to realize the community's vision for the corridor. Over 50 residents attended and provided feedback on traffic safety and economic development. The insight and perspectives that were shared will be integral to crafting the corridor vision. CMAP staff are now compiling the input from the meeting as part of the next steps in the process. Those that missed the meeting and would like to provide input or would otherwise like to learn more are encouraged to visit the Village's website and follow the South LaGrange Corridor Study link under the Community Development Department webpage. We thank all those that participated in the effort. Lastly, the annual Pilgrim Pie 5K is set to go on Thanksgiving morning. We appreciate all the efforts of the event organizers, staff, that have all focused on planning for a safe and enjoyable event. And the best of luck to all the runners, walkers, and participants in that event. President Kukler, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Manager Knight. Clerk Saladino, I'd request that you read the items on the consent agenda followed by those appearing under current business.
Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by a single motion and vote because they already been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, October 13th, 2025, consolidated voucher. Item B, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees regular meeting, November 10th, 2025. Under current business, this agenda item includes consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, a resolution to publish the proposed real estate tax levy for the fiscal year 2026-2027. Item B, an ordinance amending section 40.025 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of LaGrange regarding injunctive relief and administrative adjudications. Item C, a resolution approving public comment and participation rules. That's it.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. Next on tonight's agenda is public comments regarding tonight's agenda items.
My name is John Pluto. I'm a resident of LaGrange. My comments have to do with regarding the agenda items. I would appreciate if the minutes would show that my comments regarding possible hazardous contamination in the catch basins be noted. That would be number 4 on that agenda. I also would like to note that President Kukler only addressed the storage of the trucks and not my concern regarding catch basin maintenance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jonathan Robinson. I'm 16th 7th Avenue, a resident. I believe this is important background in regards to the agenda item 6C today about rules for open discussions and from my perspective where this resolution appears to have originated. I went to the 11/18 Planning Commission meeting and used the open discussion time to provide my concerns about the 10/14 Planning Commission hearing and minutes, which my understanding is an appropriate place to put my concerns on the public record. I stepped to the podium and was informed by the Community Development Director of the village that I would be restricted to 3 minutes. I noted that a time limit was for hearings, and this was open discussion time. And per my research, there were no readily available information on time restrictions at open discussions. She appeared to agree, and I began. I was not repeating myself. I was not disrespectful or such. And those were not the reasons used by the chairperson to request I stop speaking. After about 10 minutes, I was arbitrarily bullied off the podium by the chairperson. Please note that the village staff did not step in to prevent this, even though it would appear we had established by the village staff before I began that there was no time limit at an open discussion. My wife was in attendance and attempted to take over to cover the rest of my points, but when my wife volunteered to take my place, the chairperson told her no, and said he would close the meeting to prevent her from speaking. It was only after reminding him that it would be an Open Meetings Act violation that he allowed her to speak. I lodged a formal complaint about this situation with the village on Thursday. I have yet to hear anything from the village. I also sent this information to every trustee and the president, and none of them have formally responded to me. I hope it is not the case, but the timing seems more than coincidental. I want to make sure the reason behind this proposal is not my situation at the 11/18 Tuesday Plan Commission open discussion. From my perspective, Section B.2 of the proposed rules appears to be in direct regard to one individual in one situation. There are 2 scenarios I could see here, and both have negative optics. Scenario A, the village has been working on this resolution prior to Tuesday, which would be great. But if the village were working on this prior to 11/18, the community development director would have had knowledge of the open discussion rules and would have been aware of the correct procedure, that there was no time restriction. Based on the community development director's actions at the 11/18 meeting, it would appear that the village working on these proposed rules prior to 11/18 is unlikely unless village staff was specifically intending to limit my rights at that open discussion. So the more likely scenario would be scenario B. The village created this resolution in response to what happened on Tuesday. This has the optics from our perspective of being a massive overreaction to a one-time event. Section B2 appears to be a direct reaction to one individual. The restriction in total time for discussions and restriction in time for individuals would be regarding Tuesday. Items B2C and B2D about not getting additional time for representing groups and not passing time between individuals are two distinct things I attempted at the 11/14 hearing, not even at an open discussion. And these items are not really concerns that would happen at an open discussion. Before you ever consider approving specifically Section B2, please insist that the village approves the public request for this and/or the extensive need for this based on repeat concerns at many different meetings. I can't imagine the public is emailing, calling, and coming to open discussions to request to be limited to 30 minutes and 3 minutes per person. To establish the need for Section B2, they would really need to have many specific dated examples of people taking too long and/or open discussions going too long and/or complaints from the public that open discussions was making meetings last too long. Specific examples with times and dates of people utilizing the tactics in items C and D in open discussions should be required. If in your shoes, I would want to see proof of the desire and the need. I feel it would be a ridiculous overreaction to implement these restrictions in regard to one specific individual at one specific open discussion. Open discussions in public meetings is a critical piece of honest and open democracy, so please take the time to think before restricting it in any way. The village has existed without these time restrictions for presumably its entire existence and never seemed to have any concerns before. Section B2 is not warranted at this time in this village. I am a rare situation where a developer is proposing the largest building possible allowed this side of the tracks in this village, directly adjoining my single-family home. A single-family home I gutted and remodeled to be exactly what I wanted in a location I love. We will get through this process one way or another, but I have a responsibility to my family and my 144-year-old home to ensure it's done legitimately. My situation shouldn't spill out and limit the voices of all residents for eternity. I apologize for any problems I have personally created in these situations. I have no intention of being annoying or wasting anyone's time. In the last few weeks, how the village staff has treated me has come to a point where I cannot allow my voice to be stifled, and they are at a point where they feel it is warranted to not even respond to my emails they don't want to respond to. I felt that voicing my concerns at the open discussion portion of the meeting was one of my only options to attempt to be heard and listened to and definitely get my concerns on the public record. My bottom line is that I need assistance in getting my message through to the village staff. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. First, I hope you felt you had enough time there to say everything you wanted to say. Secondly, rest assured, the code that's being implemented is not directly related to you. You did raise issues that did cause research. Our attorney and the law firm of Elrod and Friedman have these procedures in place for many of their villages and just recommended that we adopt them. I can tell you that in the past, the 3-minute time is pretty much what we have used up here as the guide, although it isn't always followed, but we encourage it. So hopefully that addresses that.
Does that mean that the community development director has a vendetta against myself? Why did she attempt to restrict me after agreeing that I had no time limit?
I can pretty much guarantee you that the community development director does not have a vendetta against you. The purpose.
How did she not know that the rules weren't what I said they were, that I shouldn't have been restricted, and why did she allow my rights to be limited?
I can't address your individual concerns, but I can tell you that there's nobody in the village that has a vendetta against you.
How did your community development director not know, if this was in place before Tuesday, how did she not know that there were no rules before this?
I'm not, I can't follow your question, to be honest. If what wasn't
On
in
Tuesday,
place,
when
how
this-
did she know something wasn't in place?
On Tuesday, when this meeting happened, I suggested, correctly apparently, that there was no time limit on open discussion meeting times. Why wouldn't the community director know that if we had been planning this for weeks?
I'm sorry, did you take what I said, that we were planning something for weeks?
You're admitting you did this Wednesday?
What I'm saying is our attorney became aware of questions that were raised at Tuesday's meeting and said, we as a firm represent many villages. This is what we recommend get implemented, and we have it up to be voted on today.
So this was a direct result of Tuesday's meeting.
President Cooper, if I may.
Please.
Yeah, this is not a direct result of Tuesday's meeting. Our firm has model public comment rules that we push out to our clients. This village has implemented and had 3 minutes for a long time. The issue isn't, the version that is here was based on a project that our firm did for all of our clients over the past year, where we looked at Attorney General opinions, First Amendment issues, jurisprudence and case law that has come out over the last couple of years, and from time to time we update the rules to make sure that they remain current with the current state of the law. So what is in the packet this evening are the same rules that over this past year our clients have been adopting. This was not drafted on Wednesday. It was after questions have been raised, we have been talking about adopting this, and this was a good time to adopt it. But again, this was not drafted specifically with any person in mind. It wasn't even when it was drafted specifically about LaGrange. It was about what is best for municipalities that we represent, and making sure that it's current so there's no issues with First Amendment issues or the Open Meetings Act.
And so specifically C and D in that 2B section, those go into, I can look, and you have 10 villages that have adopted C and D in that 6C.
That was not, that is in the model rules that our firm has pushed out to multiple clients of ours. It was not drafted specifically with LaGrange in mind.
Can I have the proof of that, please? Can I have those as adopted by at least 3 other villages with those specific provisions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Kirsten Robinson. My family lives on 7th Avenue. I just want to thank you in advance for your time. I appreciate it. I would like to speak to the agenda item regarding the public comment rules. In particular, my family has concerns regarding item 6C. Open discussion and public meetings in general are an important venue for the public to voice concerns. One of the points we raised at the 1118 Plan Commission open discussion was that there is a provision in the LaGrange zoning code for hearings that appear to allow anyone to designate anyone else as an authorized agent to pass their allowed time and/or gather in groups and let one person represent them in all their minutes. That's the LaGrange zoning code provision 14-103C1. Conduct of hearings, rights of all persons. Any person may appear and testify at a public hearing, either in person or by a duly authorized agent or attorney. Passing your time is simply authorizing yourself as an agent, so it also appears to be B2C and B2D are not consistent with other portions of the village code. We were not aware of the specific provision prior to the hearing, so we wanted to bring it to the commission's attention at the open discussion for review and consideration. Secondly, I would also please like you to take some time considering B6B about written submissions, specifically ones made after the agenda has been produced. Many written submissions could come in after the agenda is published, so they would not be included on that record. When a presiding officer does not read aloud the submission, it could enter into a void where it then exists, but it's not on the public record and not available within the agenda or the meeting minutes. Please consider changing that wording to limit the presiding officer's ability not to read aloud a written comment to things like offensive, immaterial to that meeting, or other such specific things, so that there is less chance a providing officer will choose not to read something simply because they don't want to hear it, as would appear to be reasonably possible under the current wording. An actual example of this is in the 10/14/2025 hearing. Village staff stated that around 40 emails or letters had been submitted after the agenda. Village staff indicated that at noon on the day of the meeting, these 40 emails were forwarded to the Plan Commission. Since they weren't on the agenda and had no way of getting on the meeting minutes, they don't exist on the public record. Why can't the public know about those 40 opinions? Maybe the information contained in those documents shows why the Plan Commission voted the way they did. Please consider correcting this void where things can't get onto public record when working on this resolution. This void in this process between the agenda coming out and the meeting happening is a source of our problems with the 10/14/25 hearing and why being able to speak is so important. The agenda is the first place the staff memo is produced. Our letters about the hearing had to be in before the agenda was published, so we could not address the staff memo in our letters. Speaking at the hearing was the only opportunity we had, but we were restricted to 3 minutes of speaking time, which was insufficient to cover everything. Village staff has refused to meet with us, and we have only been permitted to send emails, which also seems to go into a void. To conclude, if it is truly a case of too many people speaking or people speaking for too long, you have to stop and think, why are so many people coming out to speak? Why do they need so much time? It's because something is wrong. It's because something needs to be addressed. Instead of trying to solve this issue by limiting and potentially silencing voices, you should be thinking, what can we do to ensure concerns are being heard? People just want to be heard. Please make sure your intentions in this matter are about what is best for the people of LaGrange. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson, and hopefully you had enough time to express your concerns tonight.
Thank you.
Seeing no other public comments on matters on tonight's agenda, I would ask for a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
I move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale and Trustee O'Brien. Any comments on the consent agenda? Trustee Augustine.
Just that, as previously stated, I recuse myself from voting on any agenda items related to the village prosecutor.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I would ask Clerk Saladino for a roll call vote.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next up is current business. First up is a resolution to publish the proposed real estate tax levy for the fiscal year 2026-2027, and I'd refer that to Trustee Augustine to be introduced.
Thank you, President Kukler. I'd just like to begin by saying thank you to our hardworking staff up here and behind the scenes for working tirelessly on the effort to organize and put forth this levy every year. It's quite a bit of work. Additionally, I'm grateful for the engagement and the concern of some of our residents on this item so far. And we anticipate additional comments tonight and throughout this review period. So thank you. The property tax extension limit law limits property tax increases to 5% over the previous year's final extended levy or the consumer price index, whichever is less. The 2025 CPI is 2.9%. The village property tax levy consists of several separate line item levies. This includes the police and fire pension levies, which reflect the current recommended contributions based on the recent actuarial valuations completed by Lauterbach and Amon. It also includes the LaGrange Public Library's line item due to its classification as a municipal library rather than as a separate taxing district, meaning that it does not have its own authority to levy property taxes. New construction is also included in the equalized assessed value calculation of the final levy for the village. Capturing new growth in the year it becomes available is critical in ensuring that it becomes part of the succeeding year's base EAV. The estimated new growth for this year is 1.5%, which reflects a conservative estimate of the EAV growth based on historical performance. Including growth in the EAV more broadly spreads the property tax burden. Special Service Area 7 tax levy funds the ongoing maintenance of the central business district and is not subject to the truth in taxation requirements. However, by ordinance, the Special Service Area levy is to be adjusted annually by the CPI, Consumer Price Index. Special Service Area 9 tax levy is part of the Uptown LaGrange development project, which included an enhanced sidewalk around the perimeter of that project. Since no funds were expended from the reserves for sidewalk maintenance or repairs, the village will not impose a levy for SSA 9 as part of the 2025 property tax levy request to Cook County. The proposed 2025 property tax levy is $12,548,353, exclusive of debt service. Police and fire pension levies include the actuarial recommended contributions, representing an increase of just over $156,000 for the police pension and just over $154,000 for the fire pension over the last year. The LaGrange Public Library's proposed levy amount is also included at $3,206,160. Corporate line item amount was calculated by deducting total allowable property tax levy based on the truth in taxation and limited rate calculations, minus all other line items. Because pension levies have increased more than the allowable extension increase, the corporate line items have decreased. With the exception of the corporate line item, all other line items were increased by 3%. While the property tax levy extension is below state thresholds requiring a public hearing, it has been the village's continued practice to hold one. With the approval of the proposed resolution, a notice of the holding of a public hearing on the proposed 2025 property tax levy will be published in accordance with the state statute. The public hearing and adoption of the property tax levy are scheduled for the upcoming December 15th, 2025 special village board meeting. Funds from the property tax levy represent approximately 46% of revenues found in the general fund. I motion to approve the proposed resolution to publish the proposed real estate tax levy for fiscal year 2026 and 2027.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Augustine.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Any discussion regarding this? Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. B is an ordinance amending section 40.025, the Code of Ordinances of the Village of LaGrange regarding injunctive relief and our administrative adjudications. And I would like to refer this to Trustee Peterson.
Recently, Governor Pritzker signed a bill that would serve to expand the powers of administrative hearing officers. Previously, hearing officers were limited to issuing orders for fines. Under the new provisions beginning January 1st, 2026, hearing officers will be able to enter orders that include injunctive relief to compel property owners to remediate code violations. This additional power will enhance the village's efforts to resolve code violations quickly and effectively. Although the amendment is not effective until January 1st, 2026, adopting the amendment now will allow for injunctive relief to be included in orders issued by the village's hearing officer at the start of the new year. I move to approve the proposed ordinance amending Section 40.025 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of LaGrange regarding injunctive relief in administrative adjudications.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson and Trustee Augustine. Any conversation or discussion regarding this? Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
I think Jim.
No, I apologize. I did not see you.
Thank you, President Kugler. I just had kind of a question on clarifying kind of what this is saying. And I wondered if between Charity, our Director of Development, our Deputy Village Manager, Charity, could help us with this, or Chief Griffin. What does this enforcement now look like? I mean, I have a very good sense of what we're talking about to help the audience understand how this helps the village enforce code.
I think Ben's going to jump in here.
Yeah, so it used to be under state law that the only thing that we could do in administrative hearings was impose a fine. So take the zoning violation, take a building code violation, or other types of violations. The hearing officer could say, oh, we're going to fine you up to $750 a day, but they did not have the authority, as long as you paid that, to do anything further. The law was changed in Illinois, and now administrative hearing officers have the power of injunctive relief, meaning telling the person, you not only am I going to fine you, but you are hereby ordered to cease that behavior or to rectify the behavior. So on the building code, if you have a building code violation, they can now order you through an injunction to take action to remediate it. So under our chapter of our code, when we put this chapter in our code, it was consistent with the old state law, which said they can impose fines. So all we're doing is adding some additional language that makes clear that the hearing officer now has the authority to also impose injunctive relief as well as fines. So it's a way to enable compliance. It's more efficient, so we don't have to go to court, which was the only way to get injunctive relief before the change in legislation.
Okay, so it's a next level. It's not necessarily involving our officers, knocking on a business or a door to enforce this. Is it just? I mean, how is it really being enforced? Because I know code enforcement is a difficult thing.
Well, it's the same way a judge enforces it, right? So if a judge issues an order that says you must come into compliance, you're required to under the penalty of more fines and the penalty of contempt and so forth. So there would still be due process. You go before our hearing officer. Our hearing officer has a hearing, and after evidence is presented, will order the party to take action or to cease action. And then if they don't do it, we would have additional remedies either before the hearing officer or go into court. But it's a way, again, to get compliance. And so it's really just a win-win for both the village. It's also a win-win for the residents of the community, because instead of, like before this, if we wanted injunctive relief, we'd have to bring them into court. So now we can do it here at Village Hall. We can do it in a much more efficient process, and one that gets the matter resolved very quickly, which is good for both sides of the situation. So there's really no downside, just upside.
Thanks. I just wanted the clarification to be stated. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Heisting. Seeing no other questions, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is a resolution approving public comment and participation rules, and I'll try to handle that. Maybe do a little better than what I just did. The Illinois Open Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 120, requires that public bodies offer members of the public an opportunity to address the public body pursuant to rules adopted by the public body. The village values opportunities for members of the public to address public officials during a public meeting and seeks to preserve that opportunity for all that may wish to do so. Providing for public comment is essential to democratic self-governance. While the village has, through its practices, consistently permitted comment from the members of the public, modern-day rules providing a framework for public comment have yet to be adopted. Establishing these rules will work to ensure all those who desire to address the village and their village officials have the opportunity to do so. To highlight just a few of the rules and an overview, the intent is for public comment time is intended to allow members of the public to address the public body on a topic that is germane to matters within the specific purview and jurisdiction of the public body. Unlike a public hearing at which Testimony is presented under oath and may be subject to examination by and dialogue with public officials and others in attendance. The public comment time is strictly limited to comments made by the speaker to the public body. Public comment time is not intended to be a forum for open dialogue or engagement. The public body is under no obligation to respond to any public comment or engage with any speaker. During the public meeting, the presiding officer may direct the village administrator or other village staff to respond to questions or issues raised in a public comment at the appropriate time after the public meeting. With regard to time, according to what's proposed, the maximum amount of time allocated for public comment time at any meeting is 30 minutes, unless determined otherwise by the presiding officer prior to commencement of public comment time. In the event that all persons desiring to speak during the public comment time are not able to do so within the time allowed, the presiding officer may either extend the time allocated for public comment time or allow for continuation of public comment time after the completion of all other matters on the agenda. If the presiding officer decides to extend the time allocated for public time or allows for its continuation after the other matters on the agenda, that decision may be overruled by a majority vote of the members of the public body present at the meeting. No speaker may speak during the public comment time for more than 3 minutes unless the presiding officer designates a longer time period for that meeting, which designation must occur prior to the commencement of the public comment time on the agenda and must be applicable to all persons making comments during public comment time at the public hearing. And a speaker that is representing or speaking on behalf of an individual, group, or association will not be allocated additional time, regardless of whether they are speaking for or on behalf of multiple people. A speaker may not yield time to another speaker. And I wanted to ask council, the currently as drafted, we don't request any longer the address of the speaker, but can we request for them to say whether or not they're a resident of the village?
You can request and ask them to indicate whether they're a resident. You can also ask what their address is, particularly if it's relevant. But under the Attorney General opinions, we can't require somebody to give their home address.
Can we change our proposal here to say that they're everyone who's speaking should say whether they're a resident or not?
I think the safest thing is not to require it, but you always have the right to ask it.
Okay. That's the general overview that I wanted to provide. I'd ask for a motion and second on this matter.
I move for approval of the resolution approving public comment and participation rules.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale and Trustee O'Brien. Any questions or comments regarding this matter? I don't see any. So with that, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. We are now at the section of the meeting for public comments regarding matters not on tonight's agenda. Does anyone in the audience wish to comment on matters not on tonight's agenda? Please.
Good evening, Mayor Kugler and board members. My name is Lori Bulio. I'm a longtime resident of the village of LaGrange. I do live at 221 East Plainfield. Tonight, I also want to say that I'm an on-site property manager for a large apartment complex in the village of LaGrange as well. On February 13th, 2025, I witnessed firsthand the Department of Homeland Security arrest, detain, and eventually deport a beloved friend and neighbor of 10 years, all because he overstayed his visa.
Did this happen in LaGrange?
Yes, it did.
I wasn't aware of it, so that's why I asked.
Yes. Since the beginning of President Trump's second term, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, CBP, and DHS have wreaked havoc on our immigrant communities through aggressive enforcement tactics, including large-scale worksite raids, mass deportations, and increased surveillance. Their tactics have negatively impacted our communities. People are afraid to go to work, shop for groceries, go to church, doctor's appointments, attend school, etc. To say this cruelty hurts my heart would be an understatement. I am concerned that our immigrant brothers and sisters' constitutional and civil rights are being violated during these arrests and detainments. I learned most recently at a Know Your Rights training that most documented and undocumented immigrants do not even realize that they have rights regardless of their status. Many different groups and organizations hold Know Your Rights training for everyone that is interested. It is helpful information. They also have a family support hotline that is answered daily from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to assist families in need of legal and social service referrals, deportation legal support, and such. I guess my question for you, Mayor Kugler, is, are there resources available, whether it's in the schools with social workers, for residents regarding their rights and what type of resources or supportive services they have, and if it's offered in multiple languages?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure of all or really the best resources that are available. I have been to seminars where Aging Care discussed the matter, but I don't have a list of all that are available. My recommendation, unless somebody in staff has a better recommendation, would be to contact the library to see what resources they would recommend.
Okay. And then, since it doesn't seem like there are resources available, would you be open to, there's several different organizations. One is the Illinois Coalition of Immigrant and Refugee Rights. They do in-person and virtual Know Your Rights training. And there is a big interest for people to learn about it because most didn't know about it. And I think it's beneficial for everybody to know in case you're interacting with any of the ICE agents and so on and so forth. Also, Mr. Mayor, the Village of Oak Park passed an ICE-free zone ordinance banning federal immigration agents from using village property as location for staging and other enforcement activities without a signed and dated judicial warrant. Would you consider assisting in getting an ICE-free zone passed for the Village of LaGrange?
Well, first, to answer your first question, which would be, would I be interested in facilitating some program? I'd be happy to do so. With regard to any other ordinance, we would be happy to consider any ordinance that was contacted, that somebody recommends. But at this time, I don't know that it would be appropriate for LaGrange or not.
Okay. And then, can I address Chief Griffin?
I'm sorry, what?
Can I address Chief Griffin?
You can ask a question for the police department, but again, as we just said, it's not really supposed to be a question-answer period, so okay. I doubt that we'll be able to answer your question, but maybe if you say it, the public will know what's on your mind, and you can always email the chief, and I'm sure he'll respond.
That's what I was going to say. If anything, I would just go ahead and just submit an email so that way you could see what I'm,
That'd be terrific.
Asking. And I'll email you guys as well. Okay, well, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Al Foreman, 56 7th Avenue in the Historic District of LaGrange. My topic tonight is 112 East Burlington, the current site of Jackson Square and storage. I'm anticipating this topic will come to the board's attention soon. For the record, I'm not a fan of the project proposal. It's much too large, and it's an affront to the Historic District of LaGrange. It's wrapped in a blanket called the Village Comprehensive Plan and is seeking significant variances from existing zoning codes. Last year, while the rest of us were debating and fine-tuning the long-range plan, property was being acquired. Plan Commission agenda documents state the developer had a pre-application meeting with village staff and officials on November 25th last year. the very same day that the board formally approved the comprehensive plan. When you look at this project, I see three distinct perspectives that I'm sure you can appreciate. First, the financial objectives of the developer. Second, the economic impact on the village of LaGrange. And third, the critically important impact on LaGrange residents, especially those neighbors in closest proximity to the site. Regarding the developer's financial objectives, I assert that as properties were procured, risks were undertaken. Developer financial goals should not influence board or staff decisions. Ensuring the project is financially viable is a developer's challenge, not the village's. Turning to the village, all developers will pitch a value proposition highlighting additional real estate taxes. That's fair, but I'll give you some context. Public data shows recently issued 2024 tax bills for the three parcels involved total $152,000. 65% of that went to the schools. About 11%, or $16,000, accrued to the village. I have no data regarding sales taxes or other funds the village may receive from current businesses at 112 East Burlington. Loss of those revenue sources will dilute any future benefits to the village. I'll make an important observation. Adding new properties to the tax rolls does not spread the tax burden over a larger base. Jurisdictions will realize an increase in real estate dollars, but those dollars will not lower the effective property tax rate. There is no favorable effect on existing taxpayers' bills. My final point and punchline is, how do you quantify the impact upon nearby residents and overall impact on the historic district of LaGrange? I'm sure the board knows there are hundreds of properties within the historic district that have been lovingly restored and maintained. The investments, including my own, are substantial. I'm not opposed to development. However, it's troubling to insert an enormous structure in the historic district, especially at its downtown eastern gateway. Personally, I think within the historic district, no building should be taller than this building. The quality of life, along with investments and the dreams of residents, are every bit as important as the development objectives. There's a large gap between the rights by case, by rights case, and the current proposal, which pays no homage to the historic district. Please consider all these perspectives before you eventually vote on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
My name is Jan Sifkovich Kinsley. I've lived at 533 9th Avenue since 1985. And what I'm about to talk to you about is probably going to sound pretty insignificant compared to some of the things that have been said tonight. But it is significant to me. Over these many years, my neighbors at 529 9th, along with myself, have complained to the Department of Public Works about a ginkgo tree in front of 529 9th Avenue. For those of you who are unaware, female ginkgo trees, and this tree is female, drop seeds each fall for about 5 weeks. The outer coating of the seed contains butyric acid, which is the same chemical that causes the odor of rancid butter and vomit. Combine that smell with animal excrement, and that pretty much sums up what we get to smell every fall. As a result, after the long, hot summer, we are unable to open our windows to enjoy the cool fall air. No, we have to continue to use and incur the very expensive cost of running our air conditioners. In addition, you can forget about sitting in your backyard because the putrid smell actually reaches the backyard. And if you try to work in your garden, it's possible you'll gag or maybe even vomit if the wind is strong enough. This foul smell has prevented us from having fall block parties, has gotten stuck in our kids' bike tires, and has been traipsed into our homes. And if you think I'm exaggerating what the smell is like, I have a Ziploc bag full of these seeds. I didn't bring it in tonight because I'm trying to be polite, but I'll be happy to give it to any of you who would like to take a good whiff. Last year, we had a more formal complaint with Mr. Colby at the Department of Public Works. The arborist came out, acknowledged that the tree smells horrendous and is not suitable for a neighborhood. He suggested a formal letter from the owner along with a petition. So this year, Mr. Millay at 529 9th Avenue, who owns the house with the tree on the parkway, wrote a letter explaining the situation, including the fact that each year he has to go outside in rubber boots to clean up the stench and power wash the sidewalk. We collected signatures from everyone on the block and submitted the letter and petition. I want to add that in addition to the smell being foul, every year I watch from my closed window in the front of my house as children find themselves crossing in the middle of the street or riding their bikes in the street to avoid getting the seeds stuck in on their shoes or in their bike wheels. And if any of these kids get hit by a car, let it be very clear, the village has been made aware of this situation. Mr. Millay could not be here tonight, but he knows that I'm here. I will tell you that the last time I spoke to Mr. Millay, the Department of Public Works had not responded to his letter, which he sent on October 6th. I spoke with Mr. Tenuto, who told me that nothing can be done. I made Mr. O'Brien aware that they had not responded to Mr. Millay's letter. At the very least, if the village refuses to remove this tree, we expect the Department of Public Works to come out every single day from the moment the seeds start dropping in the fall to clean up the seeds and power wash the sidewalk if necessary. We don't believe this is unreasonable. We've done it for many years. I believe there's also a chemical these trees can be sprayed with, but it's expensive and it only reduces the amount of seeds produced. So it's up to you. The village has created this nuisance, has made a mistake by planting these trees. I believe they are no longer planted. I've paid a lot of tax dollars over my 40 years in this village. I could talk to you on a separate occasion about my disappointment in responses to various situations. But this is the last straw for me. I'm retired. I want to sit on my deck in the fall, and I don't want to smell stench. I expect our tax dollars can be used to rectify the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsley. You're not the first to complain about this ginkgo tree or about other ginkgo trees in the village. Yes, Public Works did go out and look at this specific tree. I've recently asked staff to see how to amend our rules so that there's an appeal process for this very purpose, so that either the board or myself can make the determination. I personally agree that the tree was planted in air. Ginkgo trees come in male and female. The females are the ones that drop the offensive seed, is what my understanding is, that no one knowingly plants a female ginkgo tree, but it appears to happen, or at least happened in the past. I personally would like to stop the planting of ginkgo trees to avoid the error on inadvertently planting a female. But I agree that there should be some way for, again, I consider it a mistake that was made and can be rectified with a proper procedure. So we're working on a proper procedure. I don't expect it in the next month, but again, we're probably past the season, and hopefully we'll have something by spring.
Sorry, laptop's kind of in the way. Good evening, President Kugler and trustees of the board. My name is Bridget Murphy. I am a resident of the Village of LaGrange. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak again on an issue that continues to impact the safety and quality of life on South Brainerd Avenue. I've raised this concern before, but I feel it's important to restate the seriousness of the situation and propose actionable steps. Brainerd Avenue has become a corridor of speeding and reckless driving, drivers frequently ignoring marked crosswalks, creating dangerous conditions for pedestrians, especially families and children. The lack of adequate traffic control measures only compounds the problem. This is not just an inconvenience, it's a public safety risk. I want to acknowledge the efforts of our local police department. Their presence is very much appreciated, and I know that they're doing their best with the resources available. However, resource allocation is a challenge because traffic issues are not isolated to Brainerd Avenue. They affect the entire village, and enforcement alone cannot solve this problem. My husband came and spoke at the last board meeting, and I believe that there was some engagement from the board asking, well, what should we do? So I've come back with some proposed solutions that I think all of them should be taken together, and I believe that will help to improve this situation. One, add stop signs. It's been the board's position that stop signs are not a means to calm traffic, but rather as a means of which to determine right-of-way, which is an absolute necessity in the 500 South block of Brainerd. Despite the signage and marked crosswalk at 48th and Brainerd, drivers do not seem to understand who has the right-of-way under Illinois law. That's both a school zone and a marked crosswalk, and people drive right through it, sometimes making gestures to anybody who's trying to cross. I would propose a three-way stop sign. Last meeting it was posed, again, where would the signs go? I surveyed Edgewood Avenue, which runs along the west side of LaGrange Country Club, also a residential area, and noted three-way stop signs were located at Carriage Lane and Edgewood and 53rd Place in Edgewood. These are collinear to 49th and to 53rd Streets on Brainerd. My proposal is three-way stop signs at 49th and Brainerd and 53rd and Brainerd. These would create a natural traffic calming point and improve safety for pedestrians crossing at 48th, which could also improve from the addition of that it's the law stop for pedestrians that seems to go missing every other year. I'm not sure what happens to it. The second proposal is to reduce the posted speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour on Brainerd Avenue. Lowering the speed limit is a simple yet effective way to reduce accidents and improve pedestrian safety. A pedestrian struck at 30 miles per hour is 4 times more likely to die than one struck at 20 miles per hour. Obviously, that statistic goes up and the risk of fatality increases to 80% when they're struck at 40. Lowering speed saves lives. This is also entirely within the village's control, according to Illinois Compiled Statute 625. If you look at Section 4, the streets proceeding up to Brainerd Avenue, south of 55th, is at 35 miles per hour. As long as that transition is within 10 miles per hour, you can lower the speed limit. It requires an ordinance, which I know you guys recently did an ordinance related to motor vehicles driven on the roadways, so I'm sure that your council can advise you how to do that. I'd also recommend installing a speed radar display to provide real-time feedback to drivers. These signs have been shown to significantly reduce speeding by increasing driver awareness. Studies show radar signs reduce speeds by 10 to 20% on average, and compliance with speed limits improved by up to 60%. Finally, I would recommend adding speed cushions. These are far more accommodating to emergency vehicles than speed humps, but have the same effectiveness for traffic calming for non-emergency vehicles. I know that speed humps are not favored by emergency. I get that Brainerd Avenue is a pathway for emergency vehicles, especially with a hospital nearby. From what I've researched, I have seen that speed cushions are something that emergency vehicles don't have as much of an issue with, but I defer to the emergency subject matter experts on that. These measures are practical, cost-effective, and will make a meaningful difference in reducing speed and reckless driving. I think it's critical to effectuate these methods now. As I was reviewing the comprehensive plan from November 2024, I noticed that there is a long-term effort to make the west end of downtown LaGrange, that's the intersection of North Brainerd and Hillgrove and Burlington, into revitalizing that area, bringing more visitors. Since the west end intersects with Brainerd, that's going to make South Brainerd a prime corridor for vehicles visiting the west end. We need to make sure that there are appropriate safety and traffic controlling methods in place on South Brainerd. Brainerd should be a safe street for everyone, drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, and residents alike. Despite my calls for action by the board for the past 4 years, I still have not seen the time taken or attention that needs to be given to this matter. You guys have sent the citizens to do the work for you, to come up with a proposal, to find out who even owns the street. We've done our part, so I want to know if the board can do theirs now.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy, and thank you for acknowledging the police department. They have been out a lot on Brainerd. I know that we recently received statistics regarding how many citations were written, so we appreciate you acknowledging that.
I have a question in regards to the open meeting. How do we get engagement from y'all then, if we can't have engagement back and forth?
I'm not sure. I think part of the problem is you may not be happy that we're not doing more. We're working with our staff to see what's the most appropriate things for Brainerd. We're not trying to make Brainerd, at least I'm not, and I, again, live either on or immediately adjacent to Brainerd, depending on how you look at it. I live on the corner of Bell and Brainerd. Brainerd's a street that we want cars to go down. That's a fact. In Countryside, it's 35 miles an hour. We've lowered it down to 30 miles an hour. The staff has studied and so far hasn't recommended making that change. You've indicated you want stop signs to make it Edgewood, but I don't want to make Brainerd Edgewood. If we make Brainerd Edgewood, then that traffic that's on Brainerd goes to another street. We want to make Brainerd. We want to keep Brainerd being Brainerd. And that is a problem I don't think that you want. And I understand it. You live on Brainerd. You wish there were cars taken off of Brainerd and gone onto another street.
No, that's not what my request was, and I think that's the problem. And I appreciate the comparison of where you live, but it's also 25 miles per hour on Brainerd by where you live. And Bell also has 2 stop signs, right?
Bell is a stop sign, so you can't go onto Brainerd.
Right.
But it doesn't have a stop sign that controls Brainerd.
Helping right of way though. And so
Wait,
my previous point
any
about
intersection,
stop sign,
any street intersection with Brainerd has a stop sign. You want to make them a 3-way stop sign, but they have a 1-way stop sign now.
yeah, I want a 3-way
And that's
stop
what
sign.
Bell has. Bell has a 1-way stop. It has a stop sign on Bell.
Yes, and a 25 mile per hour speed limit.
Okay, I'm not aware, but probably that your husband said the same thing. I'm aware of that.
You don't know the speed limit by your own house?
I always drive 20.
Oh, that's great. You're probably not using Brainerd then. But this is my problem is like we propose, you said go find proposals. So then how do we make the proposals happen? Like what action are being taken? You said that your staff is taking action. You told me last time I came that you're actually not in charge of the police. So the police are doing their part.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply I've directed the police to do it.
No, I know, because you don't, and that's fine.
As a board, though, we do work with our police. We support our police.
Right.
And they are in charge of deciding how they want to enforce or what's best. The chief is.
I'm not worried about the police action. I'm worried about the board action.
Okay.
You guys are in charge of the stop signs. Under the Illinois ordinance, you guys can lower the speed limit.
Well, 2 different things. One's a stop sign and one's a speed limit. So
There were 4 that I proposed.
Okay.
So I want to know the
I'm not
actions
trying to
on
argue
4.
with you, Ms. Murphy. I can tell you this. It's exactly what we talked about, not this engagement. And quite frankly, it's because it doesn't move it moving it forward by this. But what I will say, as far as putting in a stop sign, to make it clear, not necessarily to you, I think you've been told this, but to other people that are watching at home, there is a procedure. It involves, and Chief Griffin, correct me if I'm wrong, that first contact is made with the police department.
Yes, and then we did add that concern to our list, so we do have a quarterly review for traffic safety concerns when it refers to signage or something like a speed limit, like you mentioned. So we did add that to the list since your husband was here last time, and we will review that with our village management team.
Okay. And what about the board's ability regarding reducing the speed limit?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last part.
The board's ability to reduce the speed limit, that would be a board action.
Chief Griffin included that in his response. Both stop sign and speed limit are going to be reviewed.
That's accurate? Because that's a board action, not a police action under the statute.
Yeah, so it's not just the police department, the village management team as a
Right.
whole will look at the issue from all the different disciplines of the village. So we will discuss it, we'll review it. From the police side, we look at, our traffic enforcement activities, what we're seeing out there with the boots on the ground, also, accident rates and all those type of things. Other individuals in the village have their own disciplines and perspectives of things too that all come to the table, and decisions are made as to what would project onto the board for ordinance changes.
And those are quarterly meetings?
Correct.
Are they open to the public or no?
No.
How does the public find out?
We give the public feedback as to when they raise a concern, so we did tell your husband we would get back to him with some information.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
John Pluto, resident. I have an article here, and I'll leave it with you. It's in regards to Take 5, the village's initiative for a safer LaGrange road. And this is from the village of LaGrange Park. I'll read the article. The Illinois Department...
Really?
I'm going to get to the gist of it.
Okay.
Let me talk. I have the floor.
You have the floor. Take your 3 minutes.
I have the floor at this time. I got 3 minutes. The Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT, approved the village's request to reduce the speed limit on LaGrange Road from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour between Ogden Avenue and 31st Street. The village learned on November 12th, 2025, that IDOT had placed priority on the installing new signage and reducing the speed limit was posted. This change was part of a Take 5 initiative in the ongoing efforts to enhance traffic safety, calm traffic speeds, and improve pedestrian accessibility along the corridor. The village appreciates IDOT's partnership. I realize this isn't an IDOT road, but there is something that you can do there. You can slow the traffic down by starting with a speed limit, and you could possibly put a camera there at that crosswalk to give automatic tickets too.
Well, Mr. Pluto, again, you're partially correct. What I was going to say to you was, we've all read that article. We're very well aware of the change on LaGrange Road and LaGrange Park. We think LaGrange Park did a great job with their campaign to lower their speed. That's all I was going to say, that your insistence on reading articles that we've read is fine.
Well,
you had your 3 minutes. I apologize for interrupting you. I'm sure I'll see you
I would like
next
the
week.
rest of the village to be aware of what other villages do. It seems that everything in this village moves at a snail's pace, and the only time something gets done is when someone gets killed. And that's unfortunately, I'm proactive. I like to stop it before it happens, not after the fact. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto. Let me add that due to the property tax bill that we introduced earlier today, we can't, or it needs a certain amount of days before it can be voted on. So we're moving the regularly scheduled meeting in December, which is December 8th. That's the second Monday in the month. We're going to cancel that meeting, and we're going to meet on December 15th. December 15th will then be the only meeting in December for the board. We're not going to meet then on the 22nd, which is the fourth Monday of the month. So we will be back on December 15th for a board meeting, and we will again welcome public comment. We don't expect that the 112 Burlington, I think I'm saying that number right, will be addressed at that meeting. With that, I would ask if there's any trustee comments. Nope. I'm sorry, what? Public comment. Please, though, it'd be so much easier if we could just get the next person that wants to comment to just line up. That way we would know somebody wants to comment. No, I don't mean to be, and I want you to take your time and be able to. You need to but just let me ask if there's anybody else that wants to comment tonight, if you could just stand up behind so
I'm just
we know.
making this fun for you. Okay. Hi, hello, thank you, apologies. This will be quick. My name's Mandy Levy. I'm a LaGrange resident and particularly invested in the 112 East Burlington issue. I heard you say that this is not anticipated to be on the agenda for your December 15th meeting. Yes? Okay. One question. There is an updated State Historic Preservation Office letter report that claims the building has significant historical value and is eligible for landmark status. Is the board aware of this report? And are there any updates on landmark status?
I'll throw it to the community development director, Charity Jones, to let us know if there's any update on that letter. I know that the staff has received it.
Sure. So that letter was dated October 6th. The staff became aware of it the following week. It was provided to the Plan Commission at the October public hearing and was referenced during staff's presentation and the applicant's presentation. As far as the current status of the agreement between the property owner and the State Historic Preservation Office, I don't have an update for that right now, but we definitely will before the item is presented to the village board for consideration.
Okay, thank you. And for clarification, I do think that there was an updated letter after that October 6th letter was presented.
Not to my knowledge. We'll happily reach out to the State Historic Preservation Office directly, though.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, I think we got everybody. If anybody else wants to speak, please stand up. All right, moving on to trustee comments. Are there any trustee comments? Seeing none, we are going to go into closed session. At this time, the village board intends to meet in closed session under the provisions of the Illinois Open Meetings Act under Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. Section 2C5 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body. Section 2C11 for the purpose of discussing pending or probable litigation, and Section 2C21 for the discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Act. The village board will not reconvene in open session as no formal action will occur following the closed session. May I have a motion and a second to enter into closed session?
I move we enter into closed session.
Second.
And Clerk Saladino, first, any discussion on that? Seeing none, Clerk Saladino, will you call the roll?
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. It is currently 9:03. Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.